Despite claims of, quote, exploding rates of being trans, unquote, and rapid social contagion, which we hear all the time from the paranoid right, a new Swedish study seems to hint that we have reached an equilibrium of gender transitions. In recent years, anti-trans lobbyists and politicians have claimed that there is an explosion of transgender identification, claiming that identifying as transgender was due to ongoing social contagion. A New York Times article reported on a sharp rise in trans young people in the United States. In Montana, Senator Tom McGilvery stood and argued for a gender-affirming care ban, citing the explosion in young trans people. Even in the United States Congress, Dr. Jennifer Bowens, representing the right-wing Christian Family Research Council, cited a steep increase in trans people, blaming the increase on social media. Now, a new study in Sweden appears to show gender transition rates appear to have leveled off among all age cohorts. Social contagion theory claims that there is a massive increase in people identifying as transgender, and that this increase is due to social contagion, basically social exposure, or people essentially catching being transgender from one another. You know, there's a movie there's some kind of BS movie that's out right now, and it talks about how it's somehow cool to be transgender, and they're really hitting this hard of this fear, trying to incite this panic of, like, you know, watch your kids, they might catch the gay, catch the transgender from being exposed to things. And that's why all of these don't say gay laws, these bans, these obscenity laws, and all this stuff against LGBT, specifically trans content, and drag shows, and even trans people in public, performing in public, or just being in public, is such a major focus of theirs. They truly believe that it's somehow contagious, and that, you know, you can be persuaded to become trans. This new study suggests that rates may now be stabilizing. The study, released as a preprint in the Social Science Research Network, looked at over 7,500 legal gender changes and dysphoria diagnoses in Sweden, and determined that the rates peaked in 2018 with no evidence of further increases, and those numbers have since stabilized. This is also reflected in the Youth Risk Behavior Social Survey, showing a modest decrease in trans identifications after 2018 in the United States. The rates of trans identification no longer seem to be exploding exponentially, despite what anti-trans activists continue to claim. The leveling off is significant because it closely mirrors another major event that we talk about often here, which is the correlation in between being trans, as far as the chart appears, and that of left-handedness. Because remember, in our society, you were not allowed to be left-handed. If you presented as left-handed, teachers would force you to learn to write right-handed, and you just, it wasn't allowed. It wasn't talked about. In the early 1900s, the rates of left-handedness hovered between 3 and 4%. Left-handedness rates then, quote-unquote, skyrocketed to 12%, where it leveled off ever since. This was, of course, not caused by a massive social contagion of left-handedness. Rather, increases in acceptance led to people feeling comfortable using their left hand. In the 1940s, anti-left-handedness researcher Abram Blau decried the cultural influences of left-handedness and the progressive campaigns of allowing the child, quote, to be free to choose the side for himself, unquote. Again, it's always a choice to them. You're always a choosing to be who you are genetically. In an article released in 1979, Dr. Bernard McKenna said of the growth of left-handedness, "We used to call everybody a deviant who wouldn't conform. We just eventually learned better." Many have hypothesized a similar trend with the prevalence of transgender individuals. In past decades, being identified as transgender was viewed extremely negatively. Young trans individuals often faced conversion therapy or were institutionalized, while adults encountered substantial gatekeeping around care. However, in the last decade, research highlighting the importance of allowing transgender individuals to transition has grown alongside a significant increase in social acceptance. The apparent increase in transgender individuals can likely be largely attributed to the removal of many of these negative barriers. People are simply allowed to be transgender now, and to say, "I am transgender." So that's why this steep increase in a very short amount of time.